Regardless of the competitive Pokemon rule set, there will always be a meta. This meta will consist of strong Pokemon that make up strong teams. However, dedicated trainers who can read the meta shifts will be able to find anti-meta niche picks that absolutely thrive in VGC. Today's video is a part 2 of some more anti-meta Pokemon that have been taking the competitive scene by storm. I've been absolutely loving doing these videos, so without any further yap, let's jump right into the Pokemon discussion. The first Pokemon that I do want to talk about is Primarina. And I know it might seem a little odd to have Primarina on this list, as Primarina was on the Derbesti, the Michael Derbesti balance team that he did use to get 1,000 championship points with. However, since that was early in the first part of Regulation H. So over a year ago. And I really feel like after that, Primarina really kind of fell off for competitive usage. However, we did see a Specs wearing Primarina get second at the Pittsburgh Regional Championships. Honestly, that team was a very, very cool team. I think Primarina is absolutely kind of like an anti-meta niche pick. However, there was also a Sinistcha, but a Calm Mind Sinistcha. Just really cool ways to run Pokemon that we don't necessarily see. But let's talk about Primarina here. That's what we're talking about here. So Choice Specs Primarina actually does so much damage. Primarina does have the ability Liquid Voice. This means sound-based moves become water type. So Hyper Voice, you might see the Primarina here as running Hyper Voice. That is a water type move. And I really do think that kind of some of the Pokemon on this list and on the last list I made, this kind of reminds me of people just not being prepared for fast. Well, Primarina's not fast, but in Trick Room, Primarina's fast. So I'm gonna say fast, but just kind of like fast, spread, hard-hitting offense, right? And I think I have talked about it a bunch. I actually, believe it or not, am not gonna talk about size spam in this video. You might be asking, is this even a Lucky Wolf video? Yes, it is, I promise. This is a Lucky Wolf. But so Primarina is not fast. Primarina is hitting that big 60 speed. However, on the team that did win, on the team that did get second at Pit, there was Trick Room on the Sinistcha. And so, when you click Trick Room, you flip the speed tiers. So Primarina would be able to move first against a lot of pretty common Pokemon. And so I think that Primarina is just another example of like really hard-hitting moves that you might just not be prepared for. Hyper Voice is a great spread option. There's also a lot of rain teams running around, and even though on the rain teams there may be water-type Pokemon that would resist the Hyper Voice, you are still able to pump out so much damage because not only your Choice Specs boosted, right? Your Choice Specs boosted, and then it's also Stab. So, and then you're also rain boosted. So you're able to just pump out so much damage. I think, like, might sound wild, and later on in this video, I am going to talk about Sylveon, and this is another thing I want to talk about Sylveon. But I think Stab Fairy moves are genuinely what word am I trying to say? Are not very common in Reg H, even though some of the really high, top tier used Pokemon are weak to Fairy. Like, I think, like, Dragonite is a really big Pokemon that is weak to Fairy. And we see, you might see Volcarona run Terra Fairy with Terra Blast, but besides that, there's not that much Stab Fairy moves coming out. So I feel like just having the ability to threaten the Moonblast, having the ability to threaten the Dazzling Gleam is also just a really big deal in this meta, people. And I think this is also, and I will talk about this a little bit when I talk about Sylveon, but I think it's also just like maybe the meta isn't prepared to just have big Fairy type moves just absolutely hurled their way. And I think, like, because obviously the most used Pokemon is Golden Go. That was the number one most used Pokemon in both day 1 and day 2 of Pit, and that's where Primarina did well. So the thing with Golden Go is, if Golden Go doesn't Terra, then you can hit Golden Go really pretty hard with Hyper Voice, as it is neutral. And then if they do Terra, if you can bait them into going for like a water type Terra, then you can hit them really pretty nicely with the Moonblast and have the chance to lower lower special attack. Where's my brain today? Lower special attack. So I just think that I really wanted to give Primarina a shout here, just because we had seen it be popular. A different, not Specs Primarina, that wasn't the Derbesti set. I believe Derbesti was running Hyper Voice, Moonblast, Haze, and Protect, if I'm not mistaken. So just kind of like seeing Specs Primarina just absolutely have this like massive surge at Pit and just get second place out of literally every trainer. I just really kind of wanted to talk about it on this list, and I want to talk about why I think it did so well. And here's another Pokemon. I am so excited. Chat, I am so excited that just regular Kanto Ninetales did so well. We are seeing a absolutely massive uptick in the use of Alolan Ninetales. I think Alolan Ninetales was also good in the first part of Regulation H, is in the top 6 usage for Pit, so that's really cool to see. But another weather setter that I think definitely gets really overlooked is Kanto Ninetales. And so here's the thing about the Kanto Ninetales, right? A lot of times, if you want a weather setter, if you want a sun setter, you will probably see Torkoal. Torkoal is a great Pokemon. Torkoal has really good physical defense. Torkoal can hit you with... In Trick Room, there are very, very few Pokemon, unless you are running something like an Iron Ball, that underspeed the Torkoal. So being able to, 1, give you weather control, 2, give you a Trick Room sweeper, like, you might think you resist Eruption, but believe me, Terra Fire, Specs, Eruption in the sun, you don't actually resist that move. So, and there's a lot of times where people opt for the Torkoal. Torkoal can also give you a Trick Room mode or an answer to Trick Room, all that kind of stuff. Additionally, because Torkoal is so slow, how it can work, like, let's say your opponent has Rain, and they have a Pelipper, they have a Pelipper. So turn 1, they lead Pelipper, turn 1, you lead your Torkoal. You get your Rain up, because how weathers work is by speed tier, so the Pelipper would be faster, Rain would go up, and the Torkoal would be slower, then Sun would go up. So ultimately, you get your weather, and I think there's a lot of ways to run the Torkoal as well. I think there's like the Spec set, / a Charcoal set, so really offensive, but there's also like Yawn, Body Press, like all that, you can do that kind of stuff. Then there's also Helping Hand, like Torkoal gets a lot of cool moves like Helping Hand, as well as we've seen it popularized by Marco, for example. On the LAIC winning Marco Sun team, there was, in fact, yes, a Torkoal. And the Torkoal did have, oh my gosh, I'm forgetting what it's called, a Jetpack. So that you could click something, so that if your opponent intimidated you, you could be swapped out to reset your weather for later, and you could reposition, or you could click something like the Overheat, drop your own special attack by 2 stages, and then get swapped out. So there's lots of different ways to run Torkoal as well. But this is not I know I just talked about Torkoal a lot, but this is not about Torkoal. This is about Ninetales. And Rajan Ball was able to get 15th place at Pittsburgh, so out of everybody was able to get 15th with a nasty plot. Ninetales. That Ninetales getting nasty. And I just think it's really cool to see because, well, 1, I think, like, we haven't seen Ninetales thrive in VGC in quite some time, but Rajan was running a pretty fast, pretty offensive team. There was no Trick Room mode on the team. There was a Blood Moon Ursaluna, but it was Life Orb, and there was a Whimsicott on the team, so I'm gonna assume probably a pretty fast Blood Moon. I'm also running Whimsicott and Blood Moon on a Reg H team I actually did win a couple ladder tours with it, so I have a video about that in the works that will come out later this week, besides the point. But sometimes, like, having that really slow Pokemon, having a Pokemon like Torkoal, can just, like, genuinely mess up the speed tiers and mess up the synergy of your team. So I love that Rajan chose the much faster, like, 100 base speed, much, much, much faster weather setter in the Ninetales. Additionally, Sun is one of those weathers where it really just, the other the two of the other really popular weathers being rain and being hail. Like we saw snow. We saw Ninetales, Alolan Ninetales really do skyrocket in the meta recently. So having a weather that disrupts both of those is really big, because one, you're weakening water type moves. That's huge. And it also means that the Archaludon can't freely just click Electro Shot. But then also you are doing super effective damage into the snow weather as well. So I think it's just like I just think it's a really cool pick, and it was really cool to see Ninetales do so well, because if you do want Sun, you don't have to choose Slow Torkoal. You do have Ninetales right here. I think Rajan proved that Ninetales deserves a shot in this meta. Additionally, we do see the Nasty Plot, so Terrifier with the Nasty Plot. This is exactly the set that Rajan was running. So Terrifier with the Nasty Plot, you are pumping out some nasty damage. With these moves, you have Heat Wave for a spread move, and then you have a really powerful Overheat coming at you as well. So the second I saw Ninetales get 15th at Pit, I was like, add it to the list. That's going on the list. I do need to talk about that Pokemon. Okay, next. Oh my gosh, next. We do have Quaquaval, and Quaquaval did get 55th at Pittsburgh. Did day 2 Pittsburgh, and we did get to see Quaquaval on stream as well. And so the team that was running the Quaquaval, right? The team that was running the Quaquaval, very standard rain team. Very, very standard rain team. You know, if I can remember it, it is, and if I'm wrong, I will put it up on the screen, but it was Pelipper, Incineroar, Golden Go, Archaludon, Amoonguss, there we go, and the Quaquaval. So one of the reasons I want to shout out the Quaquaval is, one, because it proves that you can have fun and you can add your flair to standard teams. And in this case, a very standard rain team. Rain, again, I think, this is not a hot take, Rain really one of the best weathers, one of the best teams in Regulation H. But Quaquaval is really cool, right? Quaquaval has access to some really cool moves and a really cool ability in that Moxie. So Moxie is whenever Quaquaval picks up a knockout, you get a +1 attack boost, right? And then Aqua Step is an 80 base power physical water move, but 80 BP, that's nothing to sneeze at. And it has 100% chance to raise your speed. So if there is a turn Quaquaval gets to click Aqua Step and picks up a KO, you get a +1 speed and a +1 attack. That's literally the move Dragon Dance. You get a Dragon Dance and you get damage. Like, I don't know. I just think that is a really, really cool, I think it's a really cool combination, a really cool Pokemon. And we do see Sash on the Quaquaval. Quaquaval doesn't have the biggest defenses in the world. Like, it's not horrible. Like, Spadef 75. But, you know, 80 defense, 85 HP. It's like nothing horrible. But the Sash just guarantees that you get to live, and if you are getting Moxie boosts, but you still underspeed your opponent, you can just click the Aqua Jet. Like, having access to a priority move, I think, is a really, really big deal. Like, if an opponent lives on Sash, or if an opponent lives on, 20 HP, 40 HP, but they outspeed you, it doesn't matter. You just get to click your priority move. So I think that's really cool to note. I do like the Sash here. I think, like, maybe you could run something like the, you could run, like, we have a lot of Intimidators. Incineroar is top 3 used Pokemon, and so I think you could use something like the Clear Amulet. However, I really do like the Focus Sash here, because the Moxie, if you're picking up KOs, with the Moxie, you can offset the Intimidates, right? Like, you want to swap your Incineroar in on a rain-boosted Aqua Step. You want to switch your Incineroar in on a close combat. Like, it may take 2 hits, but this Quaquaval is going to pick up your Incineroar. So you swap your Incineroar and you got an Intimidate, then the Quaquaval picks you up. Now Quaquaval's just still at neutral, and you have no Incineroar. So I think, like, the Focus Sash, to me, makes a lot of sense here. It really does give you staying power and everything like that. I also do want to shout, I can't remember how many GCs there were in the first part of Reg H, but one of the early GCs, perhaps the first GC, in the first part of Regulation H, there was a Rain team that I do believe got top 3 in the entirety against everybody, like in the global challenge. I believe did get top 3, and that team also used Quaquaval. That team was really cool. It was Specs, Archaludon, Scarf, Pelipper, like really fun best of one stuff, and then and a Quaquaval was on that team as well. So I think that also proves Quaquaval, like that kind of proved Quaquaval can work in Regulation H, and then really we just got to see Quaquaval do fun stuff on stream and do really well at Pit as well, placing 55th overall, which I think is really cool. Okay, chat. Okay, chat. We do have Blaziken here, and Blaziken did get first. Yes, you heard me. Did take home first place in the Victory Road September Challenge 1. It was a really cool team. I'm actually gonna like take a look at the team in a second. I want to talk about just Blaziken first, but I'm gonna take a look at the team as a whole because the team also utilizes another Pokemon I actually called out in my last video. So I do love seeing some of these like niche picks, some of these anti-meta picks that I'm calling out do well. It does make me quite happy. It's kind of showing like, yes, the research is really all coming together, which is a really nice feeling. But let's talk Blaziken. Let's talk Blaziken here. Speed Boost. Speed Boost is a very cool ability. You get a +1 at the end of every turn. Like, yes, that is good. That is good. Speed is arguably the most important stat in Pokemon. Are you moving first? That is huge. So Speed Boost does give you that +1 in speed every single turn. Why am I on Protect? It does give you +1 at the end of every turn, which is really big. Protect coaching, I think, like, fast coaching is very good. We saw coaching Sneasler do very well in the first part of Regulation H, also proving how good fast coaching is. Coaching raises the target's attack by 1 stage and the defense by 1 stage, and Regulation H is certainly quite a physical attack physical mon heavy meta. Like, let's look. These are the top used Pokemon from Pittsburgh Day 2. 1, 2, 3, 4. 4 of the top 6 used Pokemon are all physical. 5, 6, 7. In total, 7 of the top 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of the top 12, so over half, are physical, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Yes, are physical, and specifically 4 of them, 4 out of the top 6. So I think really being able to boost up one of your Pokemon's defenses and attack, but really the defense, so you have staying power. You have that staying power on the field is a really big deal. Additionally, you are rocking the Heat Wave. I just think Heat Wave's a great move here. You can get around Follow Me that way by clicking the spread damage of Heat Wave, and then you also have the Aura Sphere. The Aura Sphere is also, I think, quite good. We see Archaludon is a very popular Pokemon weak to fighting. We see King Gambit, a popular Pokemon weak to fighting as well. We see Porygon 2. We see both Ursaluna Blood Moon and Ursaluna. And Tyranitar, and what's that Pokemon called? Excadrill. All pretty popular Pokemon, all weak to fighting, and because you are a special mon, you don't care about Intimidates. So I just Incineroar as well. I forgot to shout Incineroar. So I do think having Stab special fighting coverage is actually kind of like a sleeper, right? Like, there's a reason we see so much Terra fighting Terra Blast P2. And I think that for a similar reason, Blaziken can really use that to their advantage as well. And Blaziken does have, like, 120 attack, but 110 special attack is absolutely nothing to laugh at. Like, that is still going to be doing a damage. And I do really quickly want to look at the VR winner team. So this is the VR winner team, and One, we do see Primarina. This is actually another Specs Primarina. Specs with Haze. Fun. So, this is another Specs Primarina, which I just talked about at the beginning of this video, but I also want to shout out this Baxcalibur. I talked about Baxcalibur in the last niche Pokemon, anti-meta Pokemon pick video, and for a similar reason, I think Dragonite's so good. Baxcalibur gets access to both Icicle Spear and Scale Shot, and this is just so good into Pokemon like Sash, Sneasler. Like, this is just so good into Pokemon where you can break their Sash and then KO them that turn as well, because you're hitting them multiple times. Additionally, I do want to talk about the Icicle Spear. Like, I think Baxcalibur, like, Icicle Spear feels very, very good into Pokemon like Dragonite, which is a incredibly popular Pokemon in Regulation H. So, Dragonite without the Terra is 4 times weak to Ice, and might live 1 Ice move with multi-scale intact. However, that's the great thing, that's the fun thing about Icicle Spear, right? It hits multiple times. So hit 1, boom, you break their multi-scale, and then you just hit them with 4 times super effective damage, multi-scale gone. So I just think that this is a really cool team utilizing the coaching. You can utilize it with the Gambit, you can utilize it with the Bax, you can utilize it with the Rillaboom. So I just wanted to kind of look at the team as a whole and really show both why Bax, I think, is really good, but also show why Blaziken works so well on this team comp. Okay, let's get back into, you're kind of getting a preview. You're kind of getting a preview of the other Pokemon I'm going to talk about today, but that's okay. That's okay. We'll get there. Chat. Next up, we have Mamoswine. And Mamoswine is a personal favorite of mine, I have to be honest. I just think Mamoswine is a cutie. I just love Mamoswine's design. I have one named Appa from Sword and Shield, and I have Appa with me in my Scarlet and Violet copy. And so Mamoswine is one of these mons, right, that I just think is so primed and prepped and ready to absolutely take over this meta with the proper support, right? So, Mamoswine does get Oblivious. You are immune to Intimidate. A physical attacker that is immune to Intimidate without having to hold Clear Amulet or without having to hold an item like that, I think is always a great place to start. But let's look at Mamoswine, right? Mamoswine is a ground and ice type. Icicle Crash, high horsepower, Ice Shard. Okay, so let's pull up Pit. Let's pull up Pit again. If we look at this top row of Pokemon, if we look at the top row of the most used Pokemon in Day 2 of Pit, Goldengo, weak to ground, weak to Mamoswine. Incineroar, weak to Mamoswine, weak to ground. Sneasler, Sneasly Weasley, weak to ground, weak to Mamoswine. Dragonite, 4 times weak to Ice, weak to Mamoswine. Blood Moon, ground type, weak to Mamoswine. Rillaboom, grass type, weak to Mamoswine. And then, like, not weak to, Annihilape's not weak to Mamoswine, but then, Arch is weak to Mamoswine. The, Tyranitar, also weak to Mamoswine. Like, Mamoswine's offensive coverage is absolutely nutty in this meta. We just went through it. Absolutely nutty in this meta. Obviously, I think it's Mamoswine's defensive typing that kind of leaves you wanting. That is a little lackluster. Mamoswine does have quite a few weaknesses. However, I do think in this meta, we have so many good support Pokemon that can really help the Mamoswine thrive. 2 of the most used Pokemon in this meta being Rillaboom and being Incineroar get Fake Out. Fake Out's a great way. You can just fake out the Pokemon that's going to hit your Mamoswine, get damage off. We also have some really, really good redirectors in this meta. We have Clefairy, we have Clefable, we have Friendguard, Mousehold, which did win the Chuppa used to win the Pittsburgh Regional. Very, very good. You have your Eviolite Magmar, your Eviolite Electabuzz, you have Rage Powder on Amoonguss, you have Rage Powder on Sinistcha, you have Rage Powder on Volcarona. So there's a lot of really, really good support. So I think, Mamoswine did get 12th at the Victory Road September Challenge 1, and I think that just, shows, with the right support, I freaking swear Mamoswine is so primed and ready to go in this meta. Really, like, getting 12th at VR, really, really huge player pool, like, I think 198 players, from all over the globe, like, just super cool to see Mamoswine do well, because, like, Mamoswine is one of those mons I have certainly been theorying, so really cool to kind of see that theory come to life. And, okay, actually the next Pokemon is kind of perfect to go along with the Mamoswine. It is the Orthworm. Okay, so look. Orthworm did get 59th at Pit, so did day 2 Pit, and did ultimately pretty well. But like I said, like again, if we just look at this real quick, I just think ground types are primed and ready to just kind of like take over this meta a little bit. Golden Go weak to ground, like top 3 Pokemon all being weak to ground, and our Chaladon weak to ground, and Tyranitar weak to ground. I just think that ground types are primed and prepped to take over. And you might be thinking, why are you talking about ground types? That's an Earthworm. That is an Earthworm. That is a Steel type. Yes, it is a Steel type. However, I'm going one step beyond, right? Because this is a Steel type with Earth Eater. Earth Eater, what it does is takes one of Earthworm's weaknesses in that ground typing, and this Pokemon heals a 4th of its max HP when hit with a ground type move, Ground Immunity. That is huge. Steel typing, I think, is a very, very good defensive typing, and now you take away one of the weaknesses and make it a strength. But why I want to talk about the Earthworm. Let's say on Mamoswine you want to run the Earthquake, or let's say you are running on the Earthworm team that did do well at Pit. There was, I believe it was a Sand team, so with Tyranitar and Excadrill, and this just means you can click Earthquake with your Excadrill next to your Earthworm. So you get damage from the Earthquake, you heal up your Earthworm as well. So I just think the combination is a little bit nutty. And then you can do something like, you heal up your Earthworm, so you can click Shed Tail. And what Shed Tail does is it takes some of Earthworm's HP, it gives you a substitute, but then you get to switch them on that substitute, right? So then, let's say you get to go Earthquake. One, you click Earthquake. Then Earthworm clicks Shed Tail. Then you get your Tyranitar, you get your AV full health Tyranitar in behind a substitute, and what that does, that means if your opponent wants to slow down your Sand mode, if your opponent wants to slow down these physical attackers with Intimidate, they can't, because Intimidate doesn't go through sub. Parting Shot does go through sub, but they can't get your Mon on the swap in. They have to take a turn, they have to take damage, one, and they also can't fake you out, because that, you won't flinch, it won't break the substitute. So, one, not only can they not slow you down by switching in, if they do want to swap in, they're taking damage. Then they have to take another turn to Parting Shot, like, they are not going to take that much damage, because you also have another Pokemon that you're attacking with. And you also know, I do think Body Press is a incredibly good move. Orthworm boasts a massive 145 defense stat. Even without any boosts or anything like that, you are going to be getting really decent damage with your Body Press. And again, Body Press can't be the damage output of Body Press is not affected by Intimidate, because this is based off of your defense. They can intimidate you all you want. You don't give a flying heck, because this is based off of your defensive stat. They can Parting Shot you as much as you want, but again, not one heck given, because they're not lowering your defense in the process. So you're just pumping out damage. And you can go Helping Hand. Like, I really like the Helping Hand here. Just getting extra damage off with your Earthquake or with your other Pokemon. And you have the Heavy Slam to be able to hit any Fairy types or anything that Body Press can't hit. But I just think, like, I think ground types and then also Orthworm are both just like so primed and prepped to really do well in this meta. So I really want to talk about both of them. Also, just like random, I just want to say I do think Orthworm has an amazing shiny. Not having to do with competitive at all, but you know I gotta shout a pretty blue shiny when I see one. Okay, chat. I definitely did get some comments on the last video about Sylveon and about Scyther. And in the last video, I did talk about Garganacl. So, Stefan Mott did win the Monterey Regional Championships with a team utilizing Sylveon, utilizing a Garganacl, and utilizing Scyther. Lit. It was awesome. It was awesome. But one of the reasons I didn't talk about these two Mons is I actually did, a full breakdown of both the Monterey finalist teams, and someone that regional was not streamed. However, someone in the audience was able to videotape the finals, so I did also a breakdown of the finals, and a breakdown of the teams, so I just didn't want to be going over something I felt like I had already touched on, so I am going to be a little bit quicker with my discussion of both Sylveon and Scyther, but they absolutely, of course, 100% deserve to be on this list, and I will link my video kind of to where I break down the finals and where I break down both teams in the description down below. I had a great time doing that. It wasn't streamed, so I just got to do my commentary over it, and y'all know I'm gonna have a good time with that. So let's talk Sylveon though. Sylveon, my favorite evolution and my favorite Pokemon period ever is Espeon, but Sylveon is my second favorite evolution. I have a really, really soft spot in my heart for the Sylveon. The first tournament I ever won, I did win with a Sylveon. And so I love Sylveon. So it's very cool to see Sylveon do well. And kind of like I said with the Primarina, I think sometimes, like, people aren't ready for Sylveon's both offensive prowess, but also ultimately Sylveon's bulk. Like, 130 Spadef, 95 HP, like 65 defense, so Sylveon doesn't take physical attacks particularly well, but is a really decent special wall with boasting a 110 special attack stat, which also, that will do damage. That will do damage. Hyper Voice, similar to how Hyper Voice interacts with Liquid Voice for the Primarina, Hyper Voice, Sylveon does get Pixelate, normal type moves become fairy type moves, so that's what Hyper Voice is. It is a fairy type move. Additionally, with the Wish, like the Wish, I think just worked perfectly on this team that Stefan built, because that team utilizes a lot of a lot of damage over time with something like the Garganackle. Garganackle did set up rocks. Garganackle can get you with the, what's it called? Salt Cure, which does damage over time. Like, you want to swap your Pokemon out. And I think, like, so Wish, you just get to play on, if your opponent wants to swap out to either not go to sleep from the yawn, or not just get whittled down repeatedly by the Salt Cure, then you can click your Wish button, and then, like, boom, Sylveon's just back at full health, ready to yawn ya, ready to absolutely scream into your face with Hyper Voice. So, I just think Wish was positioned, like, that was some inspired team building. That was some absolutely inspired team building, very well positioned on that team. But I do want to talk about Yawn. I've talked about Yawn what feels like a lot, but let me do it one more time because I think it's incredibly good. So we saw Yawn win Monterey, we saw Yawn Sylveon win Monterey, and that same weekend, Yawn, Blood Moon, Ursaluna also did win, am I gonna get this wrong, Frankfurt? I think I'm correct. Did win Frankfurt Regional as well. I think that just shows how good Yawn is in this meta. We are dealing with a lot of setup Pokemon in this meta, right? We have Annihilate, we have Archaludon, we have, now we have, like, Calmine Sinistcha, we are seeing, Swords Dance King Gambit, there's Swords Dance Sneasely Weasley. So a lot of setup mons in this meta, and the Yawn just punishes that setup so much. Like, okay, you took turns to set up this mon, go to sleep. You have to either swap out, lose all your boosts, or you're asleep, and I get up to 3 turns to be able to do whatever I want to get your HP low, to KO you, all this kind of stuff. I can maneuver how I want, but you no longer get to maneuver how you want, and the Pokemon you worked so hard to set up is now possibly useless for 3 turns. So I just think Yawn is, like, really, really good in this meta. We saw it win 2 regionals in 1 weekend. So I think Sylveon having access to the Yawn is also huge. And then I do want to talk about Scyther a little bit. So Scyther, Eviolite Scyther actually has, like, extremely decent bulk and is very fast. Like, really, really decent bulk. 80, the 70 HP is a little bit lackluster, but you get to make up for some of it with your Eviolite, and then you boast a massive 105 speed. And I think one of the things that makes Scyther so big is this dual wing beat here, right? So we are seeing how good Sneasler is. Like, again, not a hot take at all. Sneasler Day 1, I'm just going to use Pit as an example, but Sneasler Day 1, I believe, was the second most used Pokemon. Sneasler at Pit for Day 2 was the third most used Pokemon. So, you definitely want to have some answers into it. And so, being able to click super effective dual Wing Beat on that Pokemon, first beat of the wing, because it is a 2-hit move, first beat of the wing, break Sash, second beat of the wing, KO Sneasler. So I think just like having a really good matchup into Sash Sneasler is a big deal. I think also being able to threaten Annihilate with some super stab, super effective damage as well is a really huge deal. Close combat, you know, we talked about Incineroar being very good. Close combat hits that, super effective. Both Ursalunas are normal types. Close combat hits that, super effective, but hits both those mons, super effective. Porygon 2, who we're seeing a lot of, hits that mon super effective, you know, Archaludon, King Gambit, all those mons, having the fighting coverage, very good, and last but certainly not least, that U-turn. I definitely talk about, like, pivoting and positioning a lot, and just having a fast pivot can be a really, really big deal. You can lead your Scyther and say, oh, I don't love this position for Scyther, so you know what I'm gonna do? I'm actually just gonna U-turn out and reposition. So I think that, you know, Scyther just has access to a lot, like, these 3 moves that I just think are very good into the meta right now. But I think those were all the Pokemon I was going to talk about today, so I will catch you at the end of this video for my final thoughts. I had a great time making this video, and honestly, I really do think, obviously, like I said in the beginning of the video, no matter what rule set we have in Pokemon VGC, there is going to be a meta. A meta will exist, but I think Regulation H really lets you play around with the meta a little bit. And even if you are using a kind of standard team, like we talked about the Quaquaval team, right? You might be using a standard team, but then you get to use a Quaquaval on it and, like, do well. I don't know, I just think that Regulation H does feel open to be able to mess around a little bit and kind of see what Pokemon you think fits well onto your team. And it also lets you run Pokemon in a different way. I also do want to give a shout out. In my last video about anti-meta Pokemon, I did talk about both Hydreigon and Espathra. There we go. And Espathra, and how well they did at, I believe it was Frankfurt, how well they did at Frankfurt Regional. And actually, in the VR September Challenge 2, I believe we saw 2 of that team. 2 Espathra, like, two teams with Espathra and 2 teams, the same team, with, Hydreigon, get top 10, I believe maybe top 8 in that. So it's like, again, just another team and another Pokemon I kind of shouted, 2 Pokemon I kind of shouted out, doing well, really does make me happy. And it also proves it's like, it's not a fluke. It is not a fluke at all. These Pokemon, they're not just here for one tournament. They're not just here to do one thing and then fall off. Like, no. They are here to stay in this meta, and I think the meta will only kind of grow and develop from here. So I have been having a great time making these videos, so I do want to say thank you all so much for the love on these videos. I really do appreciate it. If you want a part 3, that's how lit Reg H is. I can literally make a part 3 without repeating any Pokemon. That feels crazy to say. But if you do want a part 3, please feel free to let me know in the comments down below. And I do want to say thank you all so much for watching. I really do appreciate it. If you did enjoy this content at any time, please feel free to leave a like, comment, and subscribe. It all really does help me out, and I will catch you in the next one. Okay, bye!